The future of work isn't about shareholder value, technology, metrics, or automation. It's about being human and putting people first through actionable love. Welcome to the Love in Action podcast, where we hold deep conversations with extraordinary people to help you grow as a leader and expand your business. Here's your host, Marcel Schwantes.
If you're not familiar with the leadership movement known as servant leadership, you might want to grab a cup of coffee and pull up a chair. Okay, this may just transform how you lead your tribe moving forward. So what we're finding is that organizations around the world are changing their attitudes toward leadership, especially post-COVID. And, it's been written and talked about for decades with great authors and speakers and scholars defining this movement in different ways, calling it different things. In the end, most of these people have been talking about the same things, that leadership and life really is about human relationships. So consequently, servant leadership has emerged over the last 40, 50 years on a grand scale in some of the most admired and successful companies on the planet. And a lot of those companies are featured in Fortune magazine's annual listing of the 100 best companies to work for. Might want to check that out. Companies like The Container Store, Southwest Airlines, Zappos, etc. So to immortalize this movement, world-renowned management thinker Dana Zohar, in her groundbreaking book, Rewiring the Corporate Brain, she called servant leadership, quote, the essence of quantum thinking and quantum leadership, end quote. Now, before I give you some practices of servant leadership, I need to frame this conversation in its proper context and kind of give you credit to the right people, okay? So Robert K. Greenleaf is the first person who needs accolades as the founder of the modern servant leadership movement, because without his work and research, I wouldn't have a basis for my work or all of my speaking engagements. Legendary management consultant, the late Peter Drucker, was a good friend of Greenleaf, and he actually called him, quote, the wisest man I ever met. Over the last 20, 30 years, scholars and academics have tracked research, and they've really been able to boil down the characteristics of the servant leader to some really key behaviors and key practices. So I want to touch on a few of them for the rest of this conversation, okay? The number one thing that they have identified, and I bring this in all my speaking engagements and my courses, is the listening. Listening lands first on my list because it's a crucial yet frequently absent trait in leaders who are, self-oriented. Greenleaf, in fact, wrote that, and I quote, a true natural servant automatically responds to any problem by listening first. So that's number one, listening. The second one that I help to coach and develop in leaders is empathy, right? Empathy has been proven to drive performance. And empathy is really an extension of listening when you think about it. Servant leaders attempt to understand and empathize with others, to put themselves in others' shoes. So this means listening without judgment. So as empathetic leaders, your employees, your workers are considered not only, employees, but as people who need respect and appreciation for their personal and professional development. And, this generates a competitive advantage for you. The next thing that I can think of that servant leaders do quite well is that they have a strong sense of what's going on around them. So this speaks to awareness. They're always looking for cues, and they are always motivated by understanding what's going on around them, how other people are feeling. And so this speaks to the area of being self-aware. The other area that I want to touch on that servant leaders and are good at, and what we coach and teach on, is foresight. Foresight is the ability to foresee the likely outcome of a situation. So it means understanding, the lessons from the past, the realities of the present, and the likely consequences of a decision for the future. And that takes foresight. And then the last one that I want to touch on is commitment to the growth of people. Pretty self-explanatory, right? So this is demonstrated by, including things like first having a budget for professional development, for personal development in people, right? Because these days, all of these younger employees coming in, the generation called Gen Z, they are highly motivated by career development. That's one of the key reasons why they interview for jobs at your company. They want to know that they can go places. The other thing you want to do when you commit to the growth of people is take a personal interest in their ideas and suggestions, right? And then encourage your workers to get them involved in the decision-making process. So that speaks to the growth of people, developing people. All right, so I want to end like this, okay? Reflect, if you will, how you may have modeled some of these approaches, maybe in the last couple of days, maybe in the last week. So my questions in closing for you are these. How have you been a servant leader? What if we could think and act this way moving forward in our work, in our role as leaders and managers? What would that do for your team, for your business, for your organization? And the last question I have for you is, how would this change your role as a manager, as an executive, as a founder of a business, maybe as a chair of a board, or even at home as spouse, partner, father, or mother? That's all I got for you today. My name's Marcel Schwantes, and I would love to be able to serve you by speaking at your event. If you have a company event, an end of the year party, or you're looking ahead to booking speakers for speaking engagements at your events, conferences, etc., I would love to come out and speak on servant leadership. You can reach me on my website at marcelschwantes.com or find me on LinkedIn. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Love in Action podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it, subscribe, and leave us a review. Until next time, don't forget, the future of leadership is love in action. Believe it, practice it, and watch your business grow.